Greetings, all you maniacs and minds with crimes, and today, as the title says, oh boy, I really hope I don't piss off the entire Avali community when I touch their precious lore. But here's the thing, the lore to me doesn't make much sense, and these fluffy space raptors deserve better. So, I'm going to take the time and only change one thing, but it's going to have a bit of a snowball effect, which will change even more. So, let's start off with changing how Avalon is. It could still orbit a gas giant. That's completely fine. It could still be a moon around a gas giant. But the whole thing of it being a frozen wasteland, I'm sorry, but no, these little guys are not equipped for the cold. I don't care about their ammonia blood. They're too thin, and it just doesn't work. It just looks awkward. When I take a picture of an Avali and put him in a forest, it fits beautifully. So, I'm going to say that Avalon, the new Avalon, is a forested planet. Not all forests, but pretty big ones too, with gigantic trees, bigger than redwoods, much larger than redwoods. And redwoods on Earth can get so large you could have a street through them. So, the Avalon trees would be a lot larger. Also, I'm going to say that Avalon has a little bit less gravity than Earth. I'm going to say about 10% less. So if you weighed 100 pounds on Earth, you'd weigh about 90 pounds on Avalon. There'd be some other variations with the environment of Avalon. There'd be jungles, swamps, few deserts here and there, not many, but a few. But it would mostly be a very lush planet. Very green. I think that fits Avali's so much more. And with this one little change, here comes the cascade effect. Because of this, Avali would not have ammonia-based blood. They wouldn't have ammonia in their hemoglobin. Instead, I'm going to say they have iridium. Now, there's a few advantages with iridium. It is a lot more efficient when it comes to taking oxygen and putting it into the bloodstream and all that stuff. All the, what blood does. It would also mean that Avali blood would be pink, but it would turn black over time. Little strange. That would also probably mean that their skin is sort of a pinkish or blackish color. But that's alright. That's completely fine. So the ambient temperature in some areas, I would say probably around 70 degrees. Maybe there would be some humidity. I would imagine so. I'm going to still keep these little guys as little guys. 3.2 to 3.9 feet, which is 1 meter to 1.12 meters if I'm doing the math correctly. So they're still small. And with the less gravity, they're not going to be as strong as humans, and this is where augments and powered armor suits come into play. Powered armor suits wouldn't just be for military purposes. They would also probably be used for construction and mining. Because the last thing you need is, well, a cave collapse. That'd be bad. That'd be really bad. Although, they're so advanced that they'd probably be mining asteroids. But you could say that these are also basically Spartan suits that are insulated and, are pressurized and have their own oxygen inside them, just like a Spartan suit. That's why Spartans in Halo can survive in outer space. So, that'd be pretty cool. And of course, they would have mining shit and everything. It would make sense for these interstellar people to be mining their asteroid belt. Hell, here on Earth, once we're able to, we're gonna be mining our asteroid belt. Do you know how much shit is in the fucking asteroid belt? So much resources, a nearly limitless supply. Same thing with the Oort cloud, but that's way far away. Anyway, back to the fluffy space raptor people. Changing Avalon also changes a few other things too. The animals that they would have on this planet, you might be thinking, are they iridium based too? Probably, or maybe some of them are iron based. But with Avali, they would get their iridium in their blood from their diet, maybe certain foods, or supplements. Because you wouldn't want an iridium deficient Avali. It would be exactly the same as an iron deficient human. Lightheadedness and all that sort of bad stuff. I know what that feels like. I haven't really ever been iron deficient per se, but in my family runs low blood pressure. And if I stand up too quickly, I can get very dizzy. I've even blacked out before. So that's essentially what iron deficiency is. There's a bit more to it, but whatever. Now then. Okay, New Avalon is a lush forested planet with a bunch of different types of biomes, large oceans, and all that jazz. How does this change Avali culture? Not too much. They would still be very, hunter-like, but I wouldn't say all of them would be nomadic. Instead, they would have their own sort of cities and towns. I would say most of them would be actually inside of these gigantic tree trunks. Imagine like an Avali apartment complex that's inside a tree, essentially using it like a natural skyscraper. And if the tree is big enough, and if they're careful enough, the tree wouldn't die from this. Which is really wild, but really damn cool. As for desert tribes and tribes that aren't in, big forests, they would still have their classic white and orange tent things. Seriously, Avali have an obsession with white and orange. If you played Starbound with the Avali mod, you know exactly what I mean. Anyway, there's another advantage of having Iridium-based blood like this. They wouldn't need to augment themselves to absolute oblivion and wear environment suits simply to step foot on another planet. They'd probably want to, protect themselves from the weather and certain pathogens. Maybe they could do that with nanites. Nanite injections to bolster their immune system to kind of stupid degrees so they never get sick. Sounds like a very, very simple and elegant way of doing things. Because the last thing you need to do is bring a foreign pathogen back to Avalon. That could turn into a pandemic. Anyway, so now I'm going to be talking about the different breeds of Avali. There wouldn't just be, the standard little, Avali that we all know and love and want to hug because they're cute. There'd be two others. Alright. Anyway, let's get into the different breeds of the Avali. So, and also remember, none of this is official. This is just how I would rewrite everything. And I really hope that some of this comes to fruition. It'd be kind of neat. It would make the Avali a lot cooler in my opinion and, a lot simpler to understand. Anyway, let's start off with the desert Avali, the net volley. So this weird looking thing with a big tooth. I would say that these guys are the net volley in the deserts. So they'd be known for a few things. One would be they're really good warriors, and two, not the most friendly people you'll come across, but I'm sure some of them would be very, very nice. And I would say all of Avali are kind of shutterbugs. Really just stick to their pack. I'm keeping the whole pack thing. I think that's fine. It's cute. It works very well for them because they are frail creatures and they're stronger in numbers. Makes sense. Especially thinking about what monstrous creatures are probably on New Avalon. Ooh, I don't want to think about that. If it's anything like Planet Tall in the Circle lore, ay ay ay. Because if you know, you know. Holy shit. Anyway, these guys, their feather colors are usually tans, rusted colors, with some variation like that. Feather dyeing would be a thing, but I would imagine it's a painstaking process. Or it could be very simple. Really a crapshoot. Anyway, that's the net volley. The next one I'm going to say are the Davali. So I'm bringing in all these different types of Avali together. At least the three main ones. The Davali I would say would be more gentle. They would be the ones with all the music and the art. They'd be the ones that are in the colder environments. But not crazy negative 33C cold environments. I'm talking, I don't know, negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Somewhere around there. I would say Avalon would have pretty brutal winters, depending on where you are. So, that's the Davali. The net volley and the Davali are of average height when it comes to a volley, 1.1 meter to 1.12 meters. I would also say that some net volley could actually get over 4 feet. So, that'd be pretty intimidating to an volley anyway. To us, they'd still look like little things, but that's just their height. And then you have the normal Avali, or the what I'm gonna call a quote unquote forested Avali. Come up with a better name. They're your standard Avali. They're mostly in the forests. Blues, browns, green coloration on the feathers, and for the Diwali, more snowy colors. Some blacks, some grays, some whites. And speaking of white, albinos would be a thing. Very rare. Very rare. So, Soul Blazer RP's character Emilian can exist. So, he can 100% exist and not be fan fiction. Anyway, but albinos aside, what about when these three, intermingle in a very certain intimate way? Hybrids. Can they happen? Sure. I mean, they're all Avali. I mean, they only look a little different. They have the same base DNA. They're the same species. It'd be like a Caucasian having a baby with an African American. Perfectly doable. I mean, no problem. They'd still lay eggs. Up to 3 eggs per laying is average. Only childs can exist. Twins can exist. Triplets are very, very, very rare, but they can exist. Identical triplets are basically unheard of, but I would say possible. If triplets can exist, then identical triplets can exist. Same thing with identical twins. Anyway, if a net volley and a dove volley mate, what is the baby going to look like? What are the babies going to look like? Well, they could look like a net volley just with wider colors. They could look like a dove volley but with tanner colors, or they could look like a fusion between the net volley and the dove volley. I'm saying a volley a lot, but whatever. I'm talking about the birds, the bird raptors. So that's a thing. And all this would imply to every breed of the Avali. I would assume there'd be some that wouldn't want to do this. They want to keep their bloodline pure. They want to be a pure net volley. They want to have those pure breed ones. I'm sure that would happen. Probably. Anyway, what about their technology? Well, they're an interstellar species. They have tech out of the wazoo. Everything that you see in Starbound and everything in their lore, they perfectly have it. Nanolaves, nanobots, drones, all of this stuff. Really cool shit. I would say that their guns aren't lasers. They're more like rail guns, but very, very dangerous rail guns. Well, more dangerous rail guns. Rail guns are sure crazy powerful. So, all that aside, I'm not really going to talk about their military tech because I would assume they wouldn't want to fight unless they had to. This is where them being shutterbugs would come into play. They'd be very secretive about the location of Avalon. I mean, why would you openly invite people to your home planet without knowing them first? That's asking for trouble. That's asking for a war. Anyway, speaking of other planets, humans and Avali have met. So, yeah. Humans and Avali can get along, but they typically don't, visit each other's planets all the time. It's doable, but I would say to go to Avalon, you would have to go through a huge hassle. But it'd be a pretty cool payoff, wouldn't it? Anyway, where is Avalon located? I don't fucking know. I would assume it could be on the other side of the galaxy, or it could actually be relatively close to Earth. I'm not going to say it's, 4.3 light years away where Proxima Centauri is. No. It could be 20 light years away. It could be 1,000 light years away. Anyway, all that being said, what about their culture? Well, music is a big thing. Same thing with art. I don't know what their music would sound like. But maybe techno rock. It could be a million different things. Same thing with their food. I have no idea, man. But I assume they would catch and kill most of the meat that they get. I wouldn't assume they would have big meat factories. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. There definitely probably would be big festivals every year, depending on where you are, looking for that one gigantic beast to kill so the entire, small colony, small city can have a big feast. And I think it would be a pretty big deal. So it makes sense to me. They're hunters. They would do this. Going back to some of their tech, what about when they actually have to fight? Well, I would say that their powered armor, because they would have powered armor, basically Spartans, would be basically walking tanks. You ain't getting through it. I would assume that an average Avali that is in one of these iron suits, not iron, almost the iron Avali. Give Tony Stark Avali tech. Wait, don't. Actually, that'd be cool, I guess. Anyway, how strong would this suit be? I think it would. An M1A2 Abrams would look like a toy. Yeah, probably. It'd be kind of insane. If you really think about it, it makes sense because these guys are interstellar. They're probably 1,000 years ahead of us right now. Maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more. But, that'd be a thing if they had to fight. But I'd say they would want to avoid conflict. Anyway, how do packs become a thing? Packs of Avali. Well, basically the same thing that happens in the original lore. They're born together, they're close family, cousins, or just they've been, brought up together. So they're a pack. And this does mean that there can be packless Avali. I would assume because packs are a big thing with Avali, some packless might never get into a pack and maybe a bit ostracized by their community depending on where they are. That's a bit sad, but, it's a thing, I would assume. And also, homosexual relationships definitely would happen, and I don't think it'd be weird. I think it'd be perfectly okay. I just have to throw that in there because I am gay myself, and it would just make sense. These guys are very evolved, and they wouldn't be bigots to, they wouldn't care who you fuck. That's such a primitive thing to be bigoted over. Like, seriously. Anyway, like I said a while ago, eggs are laid, children are hatched, and they can be brought up by either a community or their parents, depending on what happens. Some parents might choose to keep their eggs warm traditionally by sitting on them, essentially, or have basically small incubation chambers for their eggs. It makes sense either way, but I assume doing it more of the artificial way, where you have basically a warming lamp on your kid, would make a lot more sense, especially if the parent works. You can't exactly carry an egg with you everywhere. But anyway, I'm keeping their color scheme of white and orange because it fits them. It is a bit odd why it's only white and orange, but I think it's easily explained by Avali not really being able to see too many colors. I think they'd be colorblind in some aspects. Speaking of their eyes, I would say, are very good at long range. They can see things very sharply, but at close up, everything's a bit blurry, and that's why I would say a lot of them wear glasses or simply have, well, I say simple, basically augments to fix their eyesight. But I would assume this would be a bit scary to do because you have to be poking in someone's delicate eye. Yikes, but I assume this would be fine. Their ears would be very sensitive. They could pick up vibrations. They could hear very well. And in pitch black, where even though I would assume they have very, very good eyesight, very good night vision, they would use echolocation to see through their environment. They'd basically talk with small chirps and trills, bird noises essentially, because I would assume that's their native language or something similar, and basically see like a bat. Use the reflections, use the different sounds to basically paint a picture of their environment. Echolocation. Makes sense to me. So, their clothes I would keep exactly the same. Robes, trench coats, cloaks, different little like cloth things that you could put on your ears, your tail, all this sort of accessories would be available, and you could literally make clothes at home if you have a nano lathe. Cool, right? You essentially just go on the internet, the Avali internet, and buy whatever, and you print it. That's cool as hell. That's so cool. Damn, I wish I had that. That'd be so awesome. Of course, you would need the raw materials for this, but I would assume it'd be cheap to make or get. Anyway, that is basically it. Yeah. I hope that people in the Avali community don't hate me. And even if you do, feel free to dislike the video. It won't hurt my feelings. I don't have feelings anymore. I haven't felt anything in a while. So either way, I do believe that the creator should change the Avali lore to be something similar to this. These guys, the Avali, are too cool and too awesome and cute to have lore that doesn't make much sense. It just, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm not opening my mind enough, but at the same time, when I think of the original Avali lore, I'm like, this, it doesn't fit. I just can't imagine it. It doesn't make sense to me. I know the creator was going for a super alien, like beyond alien, but he went too far. Just went too far with it. You don't need all of these things to make an alien species. But I mean, there are some alien species out there that, for the furry community, they're really out there, like protogens, but they work because, they're cyborgs. So, rules are up in the air, basically. Same thing with the Villis universe, for Sergals and all of them. It all works very well because, yes, it's very alien, but it's not, like, too far. Some of it can get a little weird, but whatever. So, all this being said, if this actually turns into the new Avali lore, holy fuck, I would be so proud of myself. I would love that so much because it'd make them more concise, it'd make them more simple, easier to understand, and it'd be cool. It'd be so fucking awesome. Because Avalon shouldn't be a frozen wasteland. I mean, I know creatures can survive in a lot of different environments. You can evolve a creature basically anywhere to live anywhere, but it's pushing it. It is. It really is pushing it. Ammonia-based blood, when I first read that, I was all, wait a minute. How would that work? That doesn't make much sense to me. I brushed it off saying, that's probably just what the creator was going for. But the fact that now, without this lore that I wrote, the Avali, these frozen creatures, they have to augment themselves to absolute shit to even leave Avalon. I'm like, no. That's way too much work. Anyway. And also with this new and I hope improved lore, it would make Avalon simpler to understand, and it would actually open a lot more doors, to be honest, because you have this lush environment to explore. You could go in and say what native creatures are here, what plants are here, what is the weather like. All of these things could definitely help with stories and other things like that. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. I hope I did a good job when I rewrote this. Just keep in mind that this is my interpretation of Avali. This isn't 100% canon. This is basically just me speaking out loud about what I would do to change them. I already covered a little bit of this in my video on Avali, but I didn't really go in depth. I could go into more depth, like what their government looks like, the AI supercomputer that they have, all of that, but I would keep that exactly the same. There's really no need to change that. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, and thank you for listening to me ramble for 25 minutes. Some 20 minutes plus. Let me know what you think of this, and I would love to see the creator's input on this, because I know he was planning to rewrite the Avali lore, and I think this is a very, very safe, effective, and quite frankly cool way to do it. So, I really love Avali. They're so cool, and I really hope that this actually comes to fruition. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.